Lisa Nichols, it's so good to be with you.
Oh my goodness. It is so good to be with you too. I mean, how many years have we been friends now, Renee?
I mean, at least 10.
At
At,
least 10, maybe 15.
oh, I
I
hope so.
think you were speaking somewhere.
In
But I
Clayton.
don't how did I get on? I don't even know how I got on the invite list, but I came and then you and I became fast friends and we've collaborated on stuff, over the years, which has been so exciting. You've been on my podcast, I've been on your podcast. Um it's just fun. And we always I feel like, there's a verse that I love that says iron sharpens iron.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
feel like that's what you and I do when we are together. I find myself writing down notes and, oh, I want to remember that. And so I just appreciate, number one, I appreciate your friendship for so many years.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well, Lisa. You know that I love you. You're the ultimate CEO in my book. We were talking about that a little bit before. And your faith, your consistency in what you do is super inspiring. And this is a little different today. I think you're going to interview me on my podcast. So
Yes,
let's see how
I've
that
never done that before. This is a first for me. And, I've had my podcast since 2018. I mean, and I've been on other people's podcasts, but I've never been the host of somebody else's podcast.
goes. There we go. Look, as a coach, I'm all about creating history. So there we
Yeah, I
go.
love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I know that you are so humble that you really don't want me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so
Sure.
you can get upset with me later, but I just want the listeners to understand who you are. I mean, you're a remarkable person. So I'm just going to read some things here. René Vidal is a 7-time NCAA conference championship coach, transformational leader, and now the voice behind the corporate athletes movement. And I do think it's a movement that you created here. He brings the mindset, discipline, and resilience of elite sports into the business world. Currently, you're the head coach of men's tennis at Northern Illinois University. And this is so exciting. Renee, you're coming off of a record setting season, right? Leading the Huskies to an 18-win campaign and a MAC tournament runner-up finish.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. That is just remarkable. That has got to feel so good.
Yes.
Um, but what really sets Renee apart isn't just the wins. It's how you build people, teams, and cultures that perform at a high level. And I know that that's your heart. I mean, you love these student athletes, but you love building into people and building teams. Prior to NIU, you led the McKendree University to its first ever conference championship, a top 25 national ranking, NCAA tournament appearance, earning Coach of the Year awards along the way. You're also a part of a nationally elite program at Washington University, helping guide the team to a top 10 finish and Elite 8 run. Today, through the corporate athletes platform, and I would say movement, Renee is equipping leaders and organizations to think, train, and execute like high-performing teams, bridging the gap between sports and business in a powerful way. And you yourself was a former nationally ranked. I remember the first time I met you, and you're telling me, I think, what did you hold a tennis racket when you were what, 5 years old or 7 years old?
That's 5 years old. Thanks to
5 years old. Yeah. Um, and so, Renee brings a passion, intensity, and a deep commitment to developing people. And I am just so delighted to be interviewing you today on your podcast. So, welcome to the show, Renee.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I appreciate your good words. Super sweet introduction. And it's just interesting. When I think back, that my dad was a huge influence in my life. And he did put a tennis racket in my hand when I was 5 years old. And my dad was an entrepreneur. He was a small business owner in commercial printing.
Yes.
His business was located in Brooklyn, New York, in the East New York section. And I would get picked up for school in front of the business and then dropped off, 3 p.m., sometime in the afternoon after at the business, and I would hit tennis balls against one of the walls. So this whole thing about sports and business has really been a running thread through my life from the beginning.
That's beautiful. I love it so much. I feel like what you're doing today, is also honoring your dad, right?
A hundred
And
percent.
his legacy. So, well, let me ask you some questions here. So, you use the term corporate athlete. What does that actually mean to you? And what separates a true corporate athlete from a high performer who eventually burns out? And you and I have talked a lot about burnout.
Absolutely. Corporate athletes are leaders who perform under pressure in high stakes environments. But it doesn't end there. Corporate athletes make the people around them better. So you need both. You need the ability to perform under pressure, and you have to have the ability to make everyone around you better. If you just perform under pressure, but you don't make the people around you better, then it's all about you. Then you're
Right.
not a leader. Maybe you're a high performer, but you're not a leader. And you and I have talked about this in the past. There's a great quote by Jack Welch of GE fame, who said, "Before you become a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others." So, corporate athletes are, they have a big vision, but that vision is really geared towards improving the lives and the work of the people around them.
No, that is beautiful. I love it. And I know that that is your heart. And it's my heart. I don't always do it perfectly, but it is definitely my heart. Well, let's talk about burnout a little bit.
Sure.
Because we just had a little sidebar conversation about burnout. What's your philosophy on burnout?
My philosophy on burnout, I think, is a bit unconventional. Um, to a certain extent, I don't believe in burnout, and a lot of the high performance leaders that I work with don't even think about it. And maybe because we are lucky because we're doing what we love to do, so we
Hmm.
don't believe in retirement, so to speak, in the classic sense. We want to
Right.
continue to keep making an impact in people's lives, to keep developing leaders, in my case, on and off the court. Um, in your case, at Technology Partners, just growing true champions, right? I mean, people that love what they do, they're great at what they do, they're all about others, they're about each other. Um, but at the same time, I mean, burnout does exist, like it is real.
Yes.
I mean, and when I look at how we operate on a day-to-day basis, with our men's tennis team, everything that we do is in part geared towards preventing our athletes from burning out.
Hmm.
Just in terms of practice time and what our practices look like, the types of conversations that we have. So, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I don't think a lot about burnout, but I think when you're a leader, and you're responsible for the development of other people, you definitely need to be aware of it
Yes.
and have your finger on the pulse in terms of where everybody's energy level is at and what you're after and what your processes look like on a day to day to get where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, you said something to me earlier before we even started recording, and we were talking about even when you're coming off of big tournaments and stuff like that. Renee, you said you got to have at least a day or so to recharge. And sometimes what I see people doing is like, oh, I got to press harder. I got to push. I got to strive. I got to, right?
Yeah.
And recharging and rest is part of the process to keep you from burning out.
Yes.
Um, it's
Yeah,
not sustainable to keep
absolutely.
pushing.
And I think, in the entrepreneurial world today, and I think over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of publicity on the hustle and grind culture,
Mm-hmm.
and this thing about, having side hustles and things like that, right? So
Yes.
it could make one feel like you're always working, and then we have this magical tool that we need to make sure that we're in control of and it's not controlling us. With technology, yeah, it's an interesting challenge, that we're facing
Mhm.
today because
Right.
information is abundant. There's no shortage of knowledge out there, but there's a shortage of discipline and there's a shortage of focus in sports and in business.
Mhm.
And the players that win are the ones that can, identify those core priorities and then execute, those priorities on a day-to-day basis. I think that's,
Mhm.
but burnout is real. I think the important thing for leaders to consider, when looking at burnout is why, like what's the cause,
Right.
and defining it. Like I define burnout as a loss of perspective.
Mhm.
Right? So if you're feeling burned out, at some point you've lost your way. So if you're over indexing on the work, you've lost your perspective to a certain extent. So the question is why? Like what's going on? And, you know, having a meaningful conversation around that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say you need to have meaningful and hard conversations sometimes with yourself. But the other thing that I would say is, Renee, isolation is dangerous. So, like having an executive coach like you or a tribe of some sort, trusted circle that you can lean on during those times, I think will help you maybe regain your perspective.
100%. I mean, we all want to have people in our lives that have our backs
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
end of the day,
Mhm.
and maybe look, you could say maybe I don't experience burnout personally because yes, when we get back from a trip, I don't apologize for taking the next day off.
Sure.
Right? Like I need that time to recover emotionally,
Mhm.
physically, relationally, like pick up the phone and call my mom or check in on the boys. You got to take time for that because if you're just a high performer at work, you're not really a high performer. I mean,
Yeah.
the challenge is to be a high performer in the areas of life that mean the most to
The
you.
most to you. Yeah. Mhm.
So, that's
Yeah.
the challenge. Um,
That's
yeah.
so good. Well, let me ask you, let's keep going here. Um, yeah, so we just kind of talked about this a little bit, but a lot of leaders believe that performing under pressure is about pushing harder or being more resilient. What are they getting wrong about high performance in today's environment? Because I do see that. I do see, oh, I just got to work harder. I
Mhm.
got to, oh, I got to stay up later. And so they forego sleep.
Ah,
It's
yeah.
like, or I got to get up. I got to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
It's okay to get up at 4 a.m. if you go to bed at 9, but if you're going to bed at
Exactly.
midnight,
Yeah, just because Bob Iger of Disney gets up at 4:15 in the morning doesn't mean that you need to be getting up at 4:15 in the morning.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I think a lot of people over-index on the morning routine and under-index on the evening.
Oh,
I mean,
that's gold right there.
100.
My friend
Absolutely.
Jeff Henderson says if you want to win the day, you start by winning the evening.
Yeah.
You
And
do
it's
the
hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. You
Yes.
know, look, there's a cross to bear when you're a high performer.
Mhm.
You think you can do anything. It's one of the beautiful things
Yes.
of being or striving to be the best leader you can be. And you think that all things are possible. And yes, all things are possible, but then you take it a little bit too far. You think you can just do it all. And I think that's where leaders run into trouble. And gosh, we could talk about lack of delegation. I mean, that's you start really getting an extreme, right?
Yes.
But I mean, 100%. Look, in high stakes environments and elite competition, there are moments when you need to push harder and show resilience to turn those setbacks into bounce backs.
Mhm.
100%. And we had that this season with our team. But every single match, whether we won or lost, didn't call for resilience. Sometimes it just called for staying focused on the task at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you know my story and I know your story. We're all for resilience,
Yes.
right? I mean, I've been driven by, um, a verse in the book of James for 25 plus years, which simply says, prepare yourself for trials. So every day I wake up, I'm preparing myself for what this day has in store for me. And I know that there are going to be moments when I need to respond like a champion. So my job is to get ready for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think, resilience or grinding, so to speak, they're important and there's a time and the place for them, but they're not the real lever of high performance. The key to performing under pressure in today's environment is calm under pressure, is
Mm.
poise. High performers must learn to stay calm and clear under pressure every single time out. And one of the lessons I do my best to convey to our players and to a few of the clients that we work with at CAI is to perform under pressure, you must be calm under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Calm is the input, performance is the output. And I think the best leaders, and you and I know Zig Ziglar, in earlier
Yes.
in my career, I used to read everything,
All of his books.
all of his books,
Love Zig.
and the the wisdom that I've taken from Zig, which I use as a filter when I read, and it doesn't matter if I'm reading ancient scripture or if I'm reading a coaching book or, just diving into, one of our favorite authors, John Gordon.
Yes.
There's God's promise and there's your responsibility. If you over-index on God's promise, you're going to fall short on your responsibility. You probably would do best to focus more on your responsibility. And if God's promise comes to fruition, then give thanks and move on to the next. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
That's good. That's a good
it's
word.
just so simple, but as another mentor of mine said, and his name was Andy Brandy, and he coached at the University of Florida for 17 years, and he led their women's tennis program to 3 national championships. He said, tennis is a simple game, we make it complicated. And I think we can say the same thing and apply that same lesson to leadership, to business,
Mm.
to sports. It's a simple game, you know, keep it that way.
Right.
Don't
Mm.
don't complicate.
So good. So good. Um, we probably have touched on this already too, but you've built championship level tennis programs. What's one principle from elite sports that translates directly into business leadership? But most executives completely overlook it.
That championship standards are behavioral, not motivational.
Mm.
Behavioral, not motivational. My private goal as a coach and a leader this year was to be calm under pressure
Mm.
because by nature, I'm a motivational guy. By nature, I want to give the pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
By nature, I want to inspire you. I want to lift you up. I want to make you feel special. I want to make you feel something that you've never felt before. That type of excitement. At the same time, there needs to be that constancy there and the habits that need to take place on a daily basis to get results.
Yes.
So success is much more than just a motivational talk. We've talked about the importance of being doers, not mere talkers. There's a time and place where the word is powerful and it makes a difference. And if you're an astute leader, you know when to deliver, that word, and to come across verbally. Um, but the power of example can never be underestimated, and that's what I do my
Um,
best to lean into every single day. So my answer is that championship standards are behavioral, not motivational. And you can speak to this, and maybe hopefully you can chime in. I think a lot of business leaders over index on vision and goals and under index on accountability and
Mhm.
daily execution. Why? And I'm speaking from experience because it's a lot easier to talk about vision and goals
Yes.
than it is for me to be on you if I need to be every single day about what we need to do to get better
Yeah.
that day. It's a lot more comfortable to sit in front of a whiteboard or to stand rather and chart out the goals and to dream, stream, so to
Right.
speak. But then we got to go out to the court, or then, your sales team needs to go out into the marketplace and actually
Mhm.
interact with real people and potential buyers and have real conversations. And that's where the rubber meets the road.
Meets the road. Yeah.
So, yeah,
So Renee, I'm just thinking as you're talking. I mean, there is a scripture that says um, that be doers of the word and not hearers only. So whether you're reading John Gordon, whether you're reading the ancient scriptures, whatever it is, yeah, let's just take the ancient scriptures. It says, "Love your neighbors, pray for your neighbors." You can read that, but
right.
it doesn't become real,
Yeah,
Renee, until you do it. Right?
absolutely.
And, it talks a lot about forgiveness. Well, I can read about that, but hey, the next time somebody betrays my trust or does something that, that was not kind,
Yeah.
what's your response going to be? I mean, are you going to put that into action?
Yeah. And
So it's so true.
those are,
Yeah.
what you're talking about, Lisa, are spiritual outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The process to get there is going to be different for everyone because it's contextual. It's what
Yes.
management consultant Ken Blanchard wrote about eons ago, which is situational leadership, which has always been a foundation of how I've approached this game of leadership. It's like, you ask me a question and then I come back and say, well, it depends. Like, what's the context? Who's involved?
Yeah.
What happened? You know what I mean? But if you can keep your eye on that spiritual outcome or that performance outcome that you're after, you'll be able to stay in the game that much longer until you
Mm-hmm.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that I love about how you go about excelling, as a leader in and out of the office, you've always, as long as I've known you, Lisa, you've surrounded yourself with great people, wise people.
Absolutely.
You
Mm-hmm.
know that some of these challenges that you've mentioned here, whether it's burnout, or behavioral challenges, things like that, you need to have good people around you, people that have your back, that can share their experience and their insights for you. And just because we might be reading some pretty potent, stuff in the morning doesn't mean it always is always going to register. You might not understand it. So it helps to have other people around you that can help you, you know, put things into perspective.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And that's why I said if there's listeners out there that was like, I'm kind of on my own here, don't be on your own. Have the vulnerability, have the humility to say, hey, I can't do this on my own. I need help. I don't know what to do here. So hire Renee as an executive coach or find a tribe. Yeah, it's walking alone is dangerous.
So can you share with us, Lisa, because you're the CEO. I mean, you're the CEO here. Um, you understand the danger, and you probably feel sometimes alone. I mean, I know by working with clients, and I know just in my position as a head coach, the buck stops here. The buck stops on
Yeah.
Lisa's desk. So, what strategies have you used so you don't feel alone and to fill that potential gap,
Mm-hmm.
you can
Yeah.
keep operating effectively?
Yeah, that's a good That is a good question, but I've got I've got an incredibly supportive family. So, um, and I have to go back to my faith because I know that I'm not alone. I'm never alone. Even though you may feel like you're walking alone, I know that I've got a higher power that I can call on. And his promise is that when I do call on him, he will answer me and help me. And Jeremiah 33:3 is one of my favorite verses. And it says, call on me and I will show you great and mighty things that you do not know. And I have to come almost daily and go, I don't know. I really don't know what to do in this situation. I also I have a tribe. I really do have a trusted tribe. Now you have to be careful about the people, right? One of my favorite, and I know you know him too, Jim Rohn.
Mm, yeah.
You become the person the five people that you
Right.
surround yourself with, right? So important. So you're not going to have 100, Renee, but I mean, I have people that I can call and say, hey, I'm dealing with this right now. What would you think? I'm
Mm,
also part of a CEO forum group. I know that I could pick up the phone and lean on any of them,
yeah.
right? When the pressure is great. And because the reality is there's a good chance they've already gone through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can lean into them and, their best practices. So, yeah, there's the thing that I would just say is just don't walk alone.
Yeah.
Don't walk alone.
It's a team.
Hire a coach, or it's a team. Yeah, and we've got a tremendous team. If I'm walking into a high stakes meeting or decision today, what is one simple adjustment I can make to immediately improve how I perform under pressure? Somebody
Prepare.
recently, yeah, somebody recently told me, Renee, I'm going to let you answer the question, but somebody recently told me, they said, stop at the doorpost. Meaning, take a deep breath and make sure the way you are walking in the room is the way that you want the energy of the room, because people can feel us before they can even hear us, right?
Yeah.
So, what
Absolutely.
would you say?
Well, let's talk about that because you're talking about presence. Let's talk about that in a second.
Yes.
Um, to answer your question, I'd say prepare like a pro.
Mm,
Confidence flows from preparation, not positive thinking, right?
right.
It's not enough to just have your morning routine locked in. Okay, that's 60 minutes, that's 90 minutes of your day. You've got, 1,300 minutes left in your day, right? So how you show up with that first point of contact is more important than your morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, optimism without operational tactics is just talk. So, you want your spirit to be grounded in belief and optimism, not only about who you are and what you're doing, but for the people around you. But it's got to be backed up with the work, and it
Yeah.
just keeps coming back to this principle of being a doer and not a talker. So I'd say, look, you got to prepare like a pro. You prepare like a pro. They say, you do the work, and God does the rest, basically. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to believe in that if you believe like I do, that winning is our destiny. When I walk into a room, whether it's in sports or business, I walk in with that belief that winning is our destiny. That's why we're here. And I would encourage every leader, if they're not doing it already, to position themselves and to do the work, do the preparation work.
Mm-hmm.
For me, we've talked about it, like locking in your routines, whether they're in the evening or in the morning and during the day. Maybe it's a
Yes.
midday
Yeah.
habit. But my confidence, any confidence that I have, which hopefully comes across as truly authentic, is grounded in preparation, is grounded in personal development, is grounded in, I call it having conversations with billionaires. So when I'm reading a book and it's by Steve Schwartzman, What It Takes, who leads Blackstone, I'm having coffee with a billionaire right there. I mean, and
Right.
we can have coffee with billionaires every single day,
Every single day.
every
Right.
single day. And I would challenge leaders, who are you having coffee with, right?
Yeah.
Who are you having coffee with? So, you know, it always comes down to preparation. And I think, like you said, pausing at the door, is that what you said?
Yeah. Pausing at the door.
I think leaders need to be highly aware and conscious of how they come across and how you want to be seen. From, I was commenting on I love the green on you. Yeah,
Yes.
that's not an accident. That's intentional. And you're reading John Maxwell's book,
Yeah.
Intentional Living. It's
Intentional living.
intentional. You didn't just, shoot up out of bed and just automatic,
Yeah.
boom. I mean, it's intentional. It's not arrogant. It's not anything like that. It's about knowing how you want to show up in front of other people's and show in front of others, but for yourself as well.
Hmm.
I mean, you're not here in a t-shirt and jeans. I mean, you're a CEO of, a high growth company. You look the part. You should look the part. And, you know, there's a lot of leaders who don't get that. And
Hmm.
I think they walk into these meetings leaning on their position,
Yes.
on their title, and they think that that's what's going to make the meeting effective, and
Hmm.
when you lead from that stance, it's dictatorial. It's not a conversational, collaborative environment, and that's what we're after, and it's what I it's what I do my best every day with the team, just in terms of empowering them. How do you empower people? You ask for their opinion. You ask them to share
Yes.
their ideas. You listen, and then you implement as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
So if one of my players says, "Hey, coach, I think this would be a great drill for us," then guess what? In the next 5 minutes, we're doing that drill. My plan that I have laid out for that day,
Yes.
it can be adjusted. It's
Oh,
not in stone. Like, if it's in
so
stone, then
good.
it's about me. If it's adaptable, it's about them. And I've made a commitment every single day that I'm going to be about them.
Yeah.
So, I think it just all comes down to training, and what's your level of preparation as a leader? What are you doing? If you're not a reader, then who are you talking to? Who are
Hmm.
you having coffee with? Who, I mean, I think
Renee,
it
I
comes
have
down
to tell you something really funny. Okay, I had to tell you something really funny.
to
That is so good. Who are you having coffee with?
yeah.
And you probably do not even remember this, but one of the first times we met and we were like talking, and I can't remember if it was you and I are both John Maxwell fans. I can't remember if it was John Maxwell. It was probably John Maxwell. Let's just say it was.
Yeah, I mean,
And you said
he
to
gets
me,
credit for everything leadership driven anyway, so we
I
might.
know. I know it's probably John. I don't
Yeah.
know. But and you probably don't even remember this, but you said to me, "Oh, John Maxwell is one of my mentors." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "You're kidding me. He is your mentor?" And you go, "Yeah, I read everything he writes."
I mean,
You
100%.
probably don't even remember that, but that's so funny because I was like, at first, I mean, I was like, "What? You got to be kidding me. He's your mentor." You go, "Yeah, I read everything he writes."
I
So
mean,
really, that is, I mean, you want to have coffee with John Gordon? Go pick up the energy bus. Go pick up, I
yeah,
think you're reading the seven commitments of a team right now,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
Oh, wow. We have all of that at our fingertips.
there's no excuse for us not to be learning leaders. There's no
Yes.
excuse.
Right.
And I don't know, I think it just comes down when you have a big vision for yourself and the people around you. I don't need to force myself to learn. I mean, it's just, it's another life principle that I have is or mantra, I'm a lifelong learner. That's who I am. That's my identity. And so much of high performance is linked to the identity that you have for yourself. It's what we do our best to communicate, to our student athletes every single day. It's like, what's your game style? Who are you as a player? And how can you embody those characteristics and those behaviors today, not tomorrow, And what you did yesterday is in the history books. Nobody
Right.
cares. You know, we're coming off the best season, in quite a while, at NIU. And I tell the guys, nobody cares. And I'm already thinking about next year. And to go back to like the definition of corporate athletes. I mean, corporate athletes are always raising the bar. They're always raising the stakes. When you win a championship, or if you're lucky enough to earn a coach of the year, I have 24 hours to sell. I give myself 24 hours to celebrate that. And then I'm on to the next.
Right.
Some of it's by default. You don't have a choice. I mean, in
Hmm.
2022, when we won the GLVC championship for the first time in program history, we had 1 week to prepare for our next competition. There's not a lot of time to celebrate. You have 24
Hmm.
hours to celebrate and to move on. And I'm all for a culture of appreciation. All
Yes.
for it. You
Yes.
need to pause, and you need to acknowledge people for the work that they're doing, and the behaviors that you're looking to reinforce. That needs to be recognized, and then it's on to the next. I mean,
Hmm.
in every exceptional leader I know, they don't live in the past. They're living in the moment, and their
Forward.
future. It's
Future.
all about the future. It's all about going forward.
Yeah. One of my, favorite podcast episodes I did was with Ken Blanchard.
I mean,
And I
he's
think at the time, Renee, he was like 83. He was writing another book. I don't know. He's written so many books.
yeah,
But, he was like, Lisa, listen, there's a lot of people that go, oh, the past, that was my best years. And they're living in the past.
yeah.
He goes, really, he goes, it's the future, the future. And I'm going to live the rest of my life with gusto. And here he is, 83 years old. He was future focused. And even at 83, not. And of course, he's had lots of accolades and success along. He wasn't, no, I'm working on a new book. I'm future focused and I'm going to live with gusto for the rest of my life.
Well, Lisa, you talked about mentorship. I mean, Ken Blanchard was John Gordon's probably primary mentor.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
Gordon mentions Blanchard in many of his books. Um, and it makes sense, right? If you're John
Mhm.
Gordon early in his career, he's like, hey, I like what that guy's doing. I
Yes.
want to do that.
Yeah.
And I actually just shared a post on LinkedIn because Jim Lear, who was a mentor not only through books but in person, recently passed on.
Mm.
And Jim Lear wrote The Powerful Engagement. His earlier works were Mental Toughness in Sports. He's written several books, but The Powerful Engagement was the one that went viral and became a New York Times bestseller. Um, Mentorship is real. We all need to surround ourselves with good people. Uh,
Mm.
and it starts with humility. It starts with understanding that you don't know everything,
Mhm.
but it's also linked to the awareness that to be great at whatever it is you do, you need to know what you don't know, because it's what you don't know and you don't know
Yeah.
that will hurt you. You're going to
Yeah.
lose the match.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to lose. You
Mhm.
have to know what you don't know. Um,
So good.
I can't tell you how to get there. Sometimes you need to fall, on your bump, so to speak,
Yes.
to realize that you need to identify what's getting in your way, and how you can fill those gaps. Obviously, we all want to be proactive and be ahead of the game, but sometimes it takes, you know, um, those external
Yes.
adverse events to happen,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
wake us up a little bit. Um, but I love, just going back to Ken Blanchard. I love that you brought him up, and um, he influenced me as well as a I call virtual mentor.
He's one of your mentors. I
Yeah,
love it.
through his books.
Well, let's talk about this. And this will be my final question to you, unless you have other things, and we could probably talk for 10 hours,
Yeah.
Renee. But you've developed the championship standard through Corporate Athletes International. How do you help leaders not just perform in the moment, but build a system? And I think that's the operative word, a system that sustains elite execution without burning out.
To perform in the moment, you have to win the moments. To perform in the moment, you have to win the moments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you over index on the moment, which would be like the outcome, for us in collegiate athletics, it's, winning a championship, right? If you over index on that, just in terms of always talking about it, but you're not executing on a day-to-day basis, whether it's through your practice, your training habits, your psychology, those kinds of things, then you're just talking. You're dreaming. Um, I mean, I can give you a specific example of how we do what we do within our program that I think speaks to
Mm-hmm.
system. Um, every Sunday, I send out a weekly game plan to our players. Every Sunday. And it starts off with a theme, and with the attention span of 18 to 22-year-olds, I can assure you it's very short.
Yeah.
It's probably one sentence, two sentences max.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to give personally, it'll be a quote, right? I'll
Right.
just borrow something from someone and throw it in there. But most of the time, it speaks to where I feel they need to be at mentally and physically for that week. And it's aligned with the outcome that we're after, in 7 days, right?
Yeah.
Because we're competing every week. We practice for 4 or 5 days, then we go and compete. We come back, we do a debrief, and then
That's
we get
good.
back to business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, every Sunday, like clockwork, I send a weekly email, with the theme. There's a graphic, of our team with NIU tennis, just to keep all of that in front of everybody. This is who we are. And it's a detailed plan Monday through Sunday. Monday, team practice, 7 a.m., 2 p.m., weights, 5 p.m., this. If we're traveling, I mean, often we'll include the picture of where we're going to play.
Yeah.
So the courts, so they can see we've never been to this location before, maybe physically, but now you can start envisioning in your mind and get ready. It's
Mm-hmm.
our form of visualization.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, everything from the hotel to where we're going to be competing, um, it's throughout the email is embedded with a winning mindset. So, if we're competing against a team, on that day, it says dominate so and so, or crush so and so, or smash so and so.
Right.
I mean, one of the teams we played this year, their nickname is the Flames, so it said "Smoke the Flames." I mean, we're just doing fun stuff like that, but
Yeah.
um, I mean, because as a leader, you're coaching all the time, and looking to lift up and improve the people around you and your team members. You want to speak positivity. You want to speak unbelievable
Yeah.
outcomes into reality if you can. Now, you can't
Absolutely.
always.
Right.
Everything that I do does not turn to gold. And I'll give you an example of that. Okay. The night before we were going to play the championship match, we had our team meeting in the lobby of the hotel. And this was my message. Okay. It was tomorrow, we're going to do something that's never been done before. We're going to win the MAC championship for the first time in program history and in our last year in the conference because we're moving to a new conference this fall. I laid out the plan perfectly. And I said, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
do it, but we're not going to get distracted. We're going to stick with our game plan. We're going to stay focused. Now, what do you think happened the next day? None of that happened. You could lay it out perfectly. You could paint the picture. You could, cast the vision.
Right.
It doesn't always, but do I regret speaking the vision like that? Absolutely not. What else am I going to do? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's just my style. Maybe another coach is free to lead that conversation however they want, but my style is like, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. This is who we are. And just realizing that it's not always going to play out that way. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, like we've been talking about, eventually you got to go out there and serve. You're going to have to hit the backhand. The backhand's weak. You can't run around that backhand all day. You're going to have to find a way to fortify your weakness at some point so it doesn't end in an L, so it doesn't end in a
Mm-hmm.
loss. And success is you being able to do that 80% or maybe a little bit more of the time, and understanding that you're probably going to lose 20% of the time. And not only that, in the big picture, at least in collegiate athletics, every season ends in a loss except for one team. So if there's 500 collegiate tennis programs in the
Yeah.
country, and I don't know how many there are, 499 of those teams go home with a loss every single year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna have to learn how to effectively learn from setbacks, turn those setbacks into bounce backs, turn adversity into competitive advantage. You're going to have to do it. You don't have a choice. It's
Right.
going to happen.
It's going to
Nobody
happen.
wins every single year.
Yeah. Yeah. And just realizing that, right? So I showed you before we even started recording that one of my new books that's on my desk is John Maxwell's How to Get a Return on Failure.
Yeah.
And it's really about what you learn, how you respond to that failure. And I'm sure for you, Renee, they're also watching when the plan doesn't go as it was set out, how coach responds.
Yeah.
Right. And that may speak more volumes to them than anything else you could do. Right. But
Absolutely.
yeah, picking yourself up and dusting yourself off and you keep going. And yeah,
Yeah.
but that's all really good wisdom. This has been so fun.
It has been. It's always good to be with you. I mean, I learned so much just from being with you, from
Yeah.
seeing you, and like I said, I mean, you're the CEO. You're doing this every single day. Everybody can learn from you, and I know a lot of people are. And I'm excited about your book. Congratulations! Please show it again
Yes.
for us all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something Extra by Lisa Nichols. Yeah, it's a leadership book. Distilled down about 23 different leadership traits. And what was really important to me, Renee, is at the end of every chapter, there's 5 or 6 pages of exercises and reflection questions, because I don't believe that you got to do the work. That's called doing the work. You can't just read the words. You got to do the work,
You
right?
have to practice.
You
I
have to
mean,
practice. That's right.
yeah, like,
So,
as a leader, what does your practice look like? What does your team practice look like? What does your leadership team's practice look like?
mhm,
It's
so
the day to
important.
day. I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, we practice on a weekly basis, 4 to 5 times a week, and we compete once or twice. So where do you think you're creating excellence? You're creating excellence in the practice.
In the practice. Yeah.
And that's how you walk into the room like Lisa Nichols, with power and confidence and poise, and
Oh,
just, you know, making the impact.
yeah.
That's how you do it,
Thank
by
you. Thank
training.
you, my friend. I'm so grateful that you're in my orbit. Yeah, this is going to be good. I know that all of your wisdom here, Renee, is going to help the listeners, and it's just been so much fun. Thank you for allowing me to host your podcast.
Thank you for doing this. There's no one better. No one better than Lisa Nichols. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.